Hello everybody, welcome to another SonicLAB. Today we're looking at the new Sequential FOURM. F-O-U-R with an M on the end. Mr. Trick by not calling it the Pro 4 in my opinion, but there we go. It's a new form factor. It is 4-voice, analog, poly, very much based on the Prophet 5. We've got Prophet 5 style oscillators, Prophet 5 style filter, and a filter envelope with curves. I think both envelopes have sort of curves adopted from the Prophet 5 as well. As I said, it's a new form factor, smaller. In fact, if we come here, you can see that the keybed is actually, this is 37 key keybed. And in fact, the keys are what they call slim keys. They've called it a Tactive keybed. It's custom. They're still quite long for slim, but what they do have is polyphonic aftertouch, which we'll get into a little bit more. The build quality is pretty damn solid, I must say. There's absolutely no wonk on this at all. In fact, while I've got this going on, I'm just going to peel off the overlay. Oh, isn't that satisfying? Some other things that it doesn't have, which I should say, is just a mono output and it's got no effects on board. And I think this is because what they've done is they've built this to be a much more affordable synth. So the next sort of stage up, if you wanted to buy a Sequential, is £300 or £400 more. The FOURM is around $799 UK RRP. You may be able to find it for less than that, I don't know. Other prices will scroll below. So it's very much a kind of new price bracket for them. So we've got keybed which has poly aftertouch. I don't know if you can see here, it's quite a short travel and there's not much kind of additional travel with the aftertouch. However, it does feel quite nice to play. I know a lot of people don't like mini keys. I'm the sort of person that when I get a new QWERTY keyboard, I'm forever mistyping. I didn't find I was playing any more bum notes than usual when I'm playing this keybed, and it suits me. Although I do have smaller hands, I totally understand if you want full size, but you could always plug something else into it, I guess. So let's have a couple of sounds, which maybe show off the aftertouch and how that kind of works as well. This one's called Dynamic Pad. And each note is quite subtle. Doing is I'm just dropping in the frequency and amount of the LFO. The LFO is going to the pulse width. It starts off slow, and then I'm obviously speeding that up with the pressure. Another one, which is program 1, which is again very sort of majestic, very prophety. A little bit of filter on each of the notes. Nice. This is a great bass sound. With a more complex oscillator, LFO. Nice and solid. Classic sync sound. With the aftertouch moving the frequency of oscillator A. Let's put a bit of reverb on this one because I know other people have in their review. I know it hasn't got any effects, but just to give it a touch. If I go to the reverse. looks like we've got oscillator B going to the cutoff, modulation and pulse width at high rate. Nice, so let's just take a look at the front panel now. Starting with the oscillators, I've got a pair of oscillators, oscillator A and B. They are based on the Prophet 5, they've got the same wave selection. So in this instance, we've got a sawtooth, plus or minus 2 octaves, and then a fifth up and down. We can also go into pulse width mode, and if you notice here, if I press and hold, what happens is the parameter is highlighted so I can adjust the pulse width. So when you see a blue button, a blue legend under it, pressing and holding will directly bring up the parameter, because there are some parameters in this menu system. So as I say, we've got pulse and saw, we can join them both together, and we can sync oscillator A and B. Oscillator B is slightly different, bring that one up. This has, in addition, has a triangle wave. Same 4 octaves, same fifth, but it also has LFO mode, which allows us to set this as an oscillator, as an LFO, because we do have a low frequency oscillator, but it's global, it's not one per voice. Using oscillator B in this mode means that we have one per voice. We've got a tracked mode, and then we've got a fixed mode, and this then turns into a sort of much more wide-ranging frequency control. Obviously, I've got to check out the pulse width. So this is a straight pulse width. We can affect the pulse width mod width. So in this instance, I've got the LFO routed to pulse width of A and B. Sounds good. Bring up a second one. Let's get the pulse width. We can offset that a little bit more, so it'd be kind of interesting. But then we've also got a unison, which we can set up to between 1 and 4 voices as well as a chord. So 4 voices is, and then if we go D tune, we can get quite a big sound there. There is another mode, which is chord mode. And to set this, we come out of unison, I play a chord, let's go, and press and hold. Put a bit of reverb on that. It's quite nice. And if we want to modulate oscillator A from oscillator B, we can do that over here in the little modulation section, which we'll cover in depth a little bit later on. But for now, just going to go route that to there. Get some nice stuff. We can also change the waveform. Let's go. Get some really nice clangorous tones. Coming into the mixer, we've also got, we've just got the blend, we've got some noise. We can change the noise. If I bring, I think if I go this parameter, we've got noise type white, pink, and violet, which is a different flavour of noise. Again, pressing and holding brings up the amount, so you've got the blend, the mix of it. We've also got oscillator feedback, which actually makes quite a lot of difference. Switching that on, we can turn it right up, and that drives. You can hear, when combined with the filter, we get quite a sort of hearty level of drive in there, which is actually pretty cool. So coming over to the mod section, this is based on the Pro 1, where we have sort of 2 definite buses where we can dial them in, although it's a bit more complicated than that. This is kind of why I thought it might be called a Pro 4, but hey-ho. So what we have here is a blue bus, which is essentially the mod wheel goes via the control amount to the destination. So adding a little bit, I've effectively got additional control of the full amount via the mod wheel. Now, if I turn this to red mode and then turn these to red, now what happens is the LFO just goes via the control here. So positive and negative amounts, we can do that. If we wanted to do both, so if I go back to my mod wheel here, then I can take this into blue mode and maybe take this to red mode. And now I'm going to route my oscillator B to oscillator A, which gives us some FM style possibilities. There is a third mode. If I press this into purple, what that is effectively it's both destinations at the same time. So we're able to kind of create some more modulations there. It's not the most comprehensive of mod matrix, but it sort of gets you where you need to go. One more thing, we also have an Aftertouch section where we can route the amount to up to three destinations. So if I was now to route, so cutoff amount, LFO amount via this route, so LFO is now modulating the cutoff, and we come back here. Now what happens with this set at 0 and this set at 0, nothing happens, but as I increase the amount, I've now got this destination bus that going sort of via this routing on a per note basis. If I had to dial this in, that will be modulating anyway, and I'm sort of adding this extra amount onto there via Aftertouch. Aftertouch routings are frequency of A and B, filter frequency, amplitude, and the frequency of the LFO. So I can do both here. It's a shame that we didn't have sort of per bus, so you could just sort of say, right, I want this much on this destination and this much on this destination. This is a global setting. So there is a sort of certain amount of compromise when it comes to the amount of modulation and the amount of routings that we can get to. While we're on the subject of the mod matrix, here's a patch that's using that. And what I've done is I've taken the mod matrix and I'm using the single LFO, and I've got it quite fast, but I'm also adding a certain amount of filter open and frequency, speed and amount. So the Aftertouch is affecting the rate, even though it's only one oscillator, one LFO, per note is going via the amount. Got a little bit of a reverb on there as well, and a touch of glide. It's quite nice. I could actually change this and do it with the oscillator B, but I can't route the amount, which is a bit of a shame that's been missed here. So I can't route this via the Aftertouch, which is kind of a shame. It would be nice considering I can use this as an LFO. So I could get it to talk quite effectively then. I suppose I could do it via the mod wheel, which would give me a little bit more expression. Just try and find that little, maybe try so. But it just shows up a little limitation of what's going on with the mod matrix. And indeed, it would be nice to have just a wee bit more routing, or perhaps, as I said, to be able to loop those envelopes, because then we could use over here, we've got the filter envelope as a routing. And if that was looping, then we'd have a bit more sort of possibilities. Here's another little trick. I've got the mod wheel going through via oscillator B to pulse width A, and then I can take the filter amount to the frequency of B. That's quite interesting. Let's 5-speed modulation of pulse width is kind of an interest, with a bit of pitch mod. Putting this in sync mode and then routing this to the pitch of a frequency let's take that down. Interesting. So there's also a sequencer arpeggiator. Let's get on to that. Arpeggiator is fairly straightforward. I won't really concentrate too much on that. What we have in the sequencer mode, though, is a 64-step polyphonic sequencer. I'll just bring the screen up so you can see that. To access this, we press the record button and make sure we're in. Actually, this is one thing that we need to do. This is where it does get a bit menu divey. There's a couple of different modes to this. So we want to sequence notes. So we'll do that. Hitting record, just play them in by step. So. I can put some rests or ties in if I want, just by pressing these buttons here. Let's get to 16. See what happens there. So now we're in play mode. So again, in the mode, so back into the menus again, I'm afraid, we want to see what we're in. So there's various different play modes. We can do retrig, which if I press a key, let's take the tempo down a bit. Every time I press in retrig mode, it just plays all the way around. And then one thing you will notice, it automatically transposes. There's no sort of play the sequence. Other modes we've got are, again, we have to go back to here, which is a little bit fiddly. We've got continue, which when I press a note, and I press another note, it continues where it was in the sequence and loops around. Another mode, which is one shot, which will just play all the way through. And stop. Then we've got step mode, which is useful if you wanted to maybe trigger individual steps, which can be useful for maybe chord sequences to your own timings, and that's it. There is another interesting mode. If we go back to here, we go into sequence mod. Now, sequence mod, what that does is it takes the value of the note and effectively giving you a control voltage. So it's 0 to 127. And when you record into this, you're effectively playing a monophonic value into the sequence. So it's a bit like parameter sequencing, but we don't have parameter lock. Obviously, it would be more appealing if we could just record multiple parameters per step and then take the notes out and use that as a mod source, but we can't do that. So coming back to this, I'm in sequence mod mode. I'm going to route it. So if we just go back up to here, I'm routing this, in this case, to the frequency of oscillator B. So I'll take oscillator A down for now, and then come back to my sequence. Then I'm just going to play, let's play some notes. Let's do 17, why ever not? So now, when I go into play, I need to be, again, in the right mode, which I have to go back to here and then get round to this. So I want to go this. Let's just do one shot for this one. There we go. So now my oscillator A I can use it as a sort of pedal note. Maybe I wanted to sync that. And I can route the LFO. Let's see what I've got going on the LFO. Take the sequence. I've got an octave on there. So now if I bring this back up, go into sync mode, we get a bit more. Interesting sequence. I mean, as I said, it's not parameter sequencing, which would have been nice to see. I mean, other manufacturers seem to have pulled that off. So it's a sort of limited feature set, but it might get you to some interesting places. So I've got this patch here, which is nice and subtle. I've got Aftertouch just routing to the pulse width modulation of A. With a sort of dense triangle wave underneath it. I've got a bit of feedback going on here, but I just noticed something else. If I press the program volume and take that up, this is the sort of overall level of the patch, I get some other sort of distortions. You hear that? Which is still quite unexpected behaviour. I'm not sure where the patch volume comes in the chain, but I quite like that. It gives me a little extra sort of unexpected little nook and cranny. The sequential FOURM is around £799 UK pounds. I've seen it for a £5 or less, so that's pretty much the fixed price for now. Other currencies will scroll below, and I would say it's sort of pushing the boundaries of what I would call affordable. However, for that money, you're also getting a polyphonic Aftertouch Keybed and a polyphonic Aftertouch capable synthesizer, albeit with 4 voices. If you want more features, more effects, more modulation, more voices, then you're going to be paying quite a lot more for an analog synth. I mean, there are more affordable options in the sort of more digital realm, but if you want that sequential Prophet 5 heritage sound, then this is pretty much it at that price. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.